Hi, Grandma here. I'm reading It's a Jungle Out There by Snell. And today we're going to start on Chapter 9, Spam Stampede. And we have a picture of a man that looks like he's an indigenous person from Peru, or as we sometimes call them, Indians. Probably from the Mashiginga tribe, since that is what most of these stories are about. And this chapter is called Spam Stampede. Now, spam is a product that many of you probably don't know what it is. It is a meat product made from pork. It's a little bit like ham, but it is typically kept in a can, and so it can be on a shelf, and there aren't many meat products that can be on a shelf. It's very popular among some people to fry with eggs or to make into sandwiches. But I'm very curious about what this is going to be about, because I don't know of too many people who stampede just to eat spam, but we'll see. It was just before dark in Kamasea. We had finished bathing in the river, where bare-bottomed kids splashed in the shallows, and older women squatted down to peel off their kushma robes and scooch modestly into the water. The tiny gnats that swarmed in clouds along the river banks and tortured us endlessly during the day had all gone home to bed. For a while we could stop swatting and scratching like monkeys with fleas. We had splashed and porpoised and drifted with the current and watched the black bats take over the skies, zigzagging after their favorite insects. Now the smell of campfire smoke drifted over the airstrip where we played ball as the sun set. In thatched huts around us, manioc, bananas, and fish were boiling, roasting, and smoking for supper. A cool, peaceful end to a hot summer day. Venus, evening star for now, glittered downriver. Suddenly, a 10-year-old girl burst into the village as if she'd seen her father's spirit. She and her mother had gone to fill their gourds with water from a small creek that emptied into the river just up from us. "Pigs are coming! They're crossing the river!" she panted through split palm walls on her way past. "Lots of them!" Her homespun striped cotton robe whipped around her skinny legs as she ran. Men exploded from their huts like popcorn, grabbing shotguns and bows and arrows. Darkness was coming fast now, and Mashigingas were terrified of the spirits that ran wild in the dark. Still, the chance to have fresh pig meat delivered right to their front doors was too good to miss. Well, I have a feeling that the Spam Stampede is not really the canned spam, but it's really these pigs. Wild pig is a favorite meat for the Mashigingas. Besides the skin, sold for enough money downriver to make them worth collecting and preserving. Good hunters went to great pains to kill the pigs without damaging their hides. The best pig hunter we knew, Pasquale, sometimes sneaked up so close that he could just whack a pig on top of his head with a club. For Teri and me, at 11 and 10, that was an awesome feat. In fact, for Teri and me, killing a pig any which way was an awesome feat, and we didn't care if the pig didn't have a hide by the time we were done. We weren't quite as desperate for the $2 the skin would fetch, and we weren't about to go crawling up to a pig and whang it on the head, even if we could. "Dad, can we go with them?" We were already well on our way. An army of wild parents couldn't have kept us away from a herd of white-lipped peccaries, which are pigs, wild pigs, stampeding right in our own backyard. Hunting their cousins, the white-collared peccaries, was tedious and tame by comparison. It took hours of visiting their favorite mud holes, following their tracks, stealthily getting within shooting range and whispering the whole time. White-lipped ones ran in herds of up to 500 and traveled long distances each day. When they came through, The whole jungle jumped out of their way, since they didn't give a whole lot who or what they knocked over, including hunters. Hunting them didn't have a thing to do with stalking and whispering. It was more like being at a football game with everyone yelling and the pigskins running the plays. Navidad, one of our closest neighbors and one of the village's better hunters, wasn't so sure we should go. "Ooh, it's getting dark and the pigs can be pretty dangerous when they stampede like this. Teri and Ronnie might get killed," he told my dad. The possibility of us getting killed seemed to bother him more than us or Dad. "None of the other kids are going," Navidad continued. Presumably, that was because their parents loved them and told them not to. Dangers aside, it was also obvious that Navidad didn't think we'd be much help. "Just get your shoes on and do what they tell you." Dad knew the Mashigingas probably wouldn't let the pigs run over us. Ever since we were tiny babies, they'd gone to great pains, sometimes literally, to make sure we survived our own stupidity. It seemed unfair that we had to put shoes on when the Mashigingas got to go barefoot, but there was no time to argue. We backtracked to our house, grabbed dirty canvas tennis shoes, and hopped off on alternate legs as we tied them on. We didn't want to be left behind. In the dusky half-light, we all ran the gauntlet through 2 rows of thatched huts. Women and children laughed as our white skins flashed past the cracks in their walls. Beyond the houses, the trail wound through a small garden with papayas, bananas, cassava, and sweet potatoes grew. Then we rushed 10 minutes off into the jungle. It was all Teri and I could do to keep up, crashing around trees, through the undergrowth, trying to miss the stickery palm trees with their spiked trunks. There was no doubt that there were a lot of pigs close by. We could all hear them thundering through the jungle. Too late, I wondered if maybe we shouldn't have come after all, but by now we couldn't turn back. "Quick, climb a tree," Navidad ordered as the sound of running hooves got heart-poundingly close. In an adrenaline rush, Teri and I jumped for the nearest trees and shinnied like white-bellied spider monkeys. There was no time to be choosy about which tree to climb. All we cared about was getting every chewable part of ourselves higher than a pig could reach. Meanwhile, Navidad balanced himself on a skinny log that made a bridge over a V-shaped gully. Pretty brave, we thought, as dozens of pigs roared underneath him. Just one small slip, and he'd return to the dust of the earth. We heard a loud blast, then a grunt, another blast, and a squeal. Navidad shot down at the pigs that ran underneath him, teetering back and forth at the gun's recoil. There was no point in aiming, since by now it was too dark to see the pigs. Shotgun shells were precious, but pigs were delicious. Blind luck would have to do. Teri and I weren't having fun. As I said, when we headed up our trees, we were too panicked to care what kind of trees we were climbing. Now that we had time to collect our breath, we both realized we were in thorn trees. And if there's one thing less fun than hugging a pin cushion, it's hugging pins. About the best thing you could say for it was we were in no danger of slipping down. Sliding down, as a matter of fact, would have left most of us stuck to the tree. To add to our problems, every climbable tree in the jungle has ants in it. And these ants were overjoyed to find us on their doorsteps so late in the day. Kind of like we'd been overjoyed to have pigs on our doorstep so late in the day. The ants bit, and the thorns poked, and it was too dark to see anything from our ringside seats. If only we had listened to Navidad instead of Dad. Boom, kablam, noise everywhere. Pigs bellowed, screamed, and clacked their teeth. The hunters laughed and joked as machis do when they're really scared. Teri and I grunted and squealed as we tried to find more comfortable positions on the thorns. For 10 or 15 minutes, it was blind chaos. Hundreds of pigs churned under and around us. Suddenly, it was over. Deafening silence. The spam stampede had passed. So now we know that what he was talking about was spam stampede. Neither Teri nor I had seen a pig the whole time. "Are you there?" Navidad called out, and seemed a bit relieved when we answered that we were indeed still there. "Let's go," he said, and waited for us to work our way tenderly back to the ground. He mercifully didn't say anything about our choice of trees, but by the time morning came, we knew the village would be full of laughs about how we had both climbed a sticker trees. They loved to tell stories about how helpless we were, and we might even get nicknames to remind everyone of our most recent incompetence. After all that, we couldn't see any dead pigs to lug home. "Didn't kill any?" we asked Navidad. "I don't know yet," he answered. "It's too dark to see. I think I shot a couple, but I'll have to come back in the morning and look for them." "Oh, good, we can come help you," we offered eagerly. We could tell by his reaction that he'd have to get up early or he'd sneak off without us. With us to help him, it would take twice as long. More slowly this time, we picked our way back to the village, following right behind Navidad's dark shape. He was glad for our company now, because if the whistling ones caught him alone in the jungle at night, they would break him up inside and he would die. Not as wary of the spirit world that was such a vivid part of Navidad's life, Teri and I were just afraid of getting lost if we didn't keep up. The next morning, to our amazement and joy, Navidad actually came to get us. "Tsame," he said, and off we went. The sun was barely up, and a damp dawn fog still hung low in the treetops. Just to be sure we wouldn't miss out, Teri and I had already done our morning chores, carrying buckets of water from the river, using a turkey feather fan to bring our log fire to life so we could boil drinking water for the day. With Dad's long, old semi-automatic .22 rifle over Teri's shoulder, we traced our previous night's trail. Following Navidad and his 12-gauge shotgun between the houses, through the gardens, back into the jungle. In the distance, a family of hairy red howler monkeys roared their morning calls. Dew dripped off the trees and highlighted freshly spun spider webs. Pairs of blue and gold macaws squawked high above us. Navidad slid quickly through the jungle. We tromped behind him about as stealthily as two chainsaws. By the time we got back to the thorn trees and log branch, Navidad had slowed considerably. He bent over, checking the ground, scanning the undergrowth. Wild pigs can be vicious when they're wounded, and their 1.5-inch long tusk made rather deep furrows in legs and arms. Teri and I kept climbable trees in sight, just in case a wounded pig surprised us. His blood, Navidad showed us at last without much commentary. We would have to track the wounded pig. Rather, Navidad would have to track the pig, and we would have to follow Navidad. We weren't much in the way of pig trackers unless the pig had a leash on it. It was slow going, a blood drop here, a hoof mark there, broken plants along the way, disturbed leaves on the ground. Navidad even stooped occasionally to smell plants, his nose searching for directions. White-lipped peccaries' strong, peculiar smell lingers on the plants they touch. When all signs of the pig's trail eventually petered out in a dry stream bed, we searched in every direction. "Neri," Navidad whispered as he pointed with his lips. "He's over there." Sure enough, at the top of the far bank, the wounded pig lay almost hidden in the leaves. Quietly, and even more cautiously now, we stalked closer. Navidad raised his shotgun to his shoulder. The pig, obviously smelling us about as easily as we could smell him, stood up, and the stiff hair on his back bristled. He clacked his teeth as if it would scare us. It did. Teri got the .22 off his shoulder, removed the safety catch. The hair on his neck bristled just like the pig's, mostly because in those days, Dad cut our hair. Not that the pig would know the difference. The pig was mostly black with a white chin and throat, as if hadn't gotten his shaving cream rinsed off. His head was big, tapering from large jowls to a narrow pink disc of a nose about the size of a quarter. Long tusks made scary lumps under his top lips. His tiny red eyes glared at us, daring us to come closer. The shotgun blast from the night before had hit him broadside. What do you think that means, broadside? This would be head on, and the other would be in the tail or behind, but broadside would be his side because it's the broadest part of his body. Look, his guts are bulging out, I whispered, staring at the bloody pink ball hanging in front of the pig's back leg. Shh! Teri was getting ready for a shot and obviously didn't want to be reminded that this ferocious pig was already half dead. Blam! In the quiet of the jungle, Navidad's gun, blast, echoed several seconds after it made a ragged hole in the pig's shoulder. The pig lurched. So did we. Navidad spread one arm out to keep us back as if he thought we might rush to have a look. Cicañera, Navidad said, as if we didn't already know to be careful. Now, he has mentioned now 3 times words that I'm unfamiliar with, and they have defined it each time. So when it says Tiscanera, I don't know what that means. And chances are, even if I tried to look it up on the internet, it wouldn't be there because this is a Mashiginga word, not a Spanish word or a common word. But he said, as if we didn't already know to be careful. So if you're trying to learn Mashiginga, add this to your dictionary. T-S-I-K-Y-A-N-I-R-A means be careful. With a big hole in its side from the night before and a fresh hole in its shoulder, the pig was rather dead by this time. Still, it wouldn't do to have one of our hands in its mouth when it went into its final convulsions, and Navidad knew very well that we just might attempt something that dumb. Dead or not, the pig was still on its legs, which was really lucky for Teri, who desperately wanted to help kill it. I could almost hear him muttering to himself, "Hang on, baby, you can do it, don't fall down yet." His first shot hit the pig smack in the jaw, setting off another involuntary wave of clacking and rattling that the pig probably didn't even know about. Navidad was quietly laughing, the back of his hand discreetly covering his mouth. Milliseconds flew by. The rifle had instantly reloaded itself, so there might still be time for another shot before the pig fell down. Teri didn't even pause to enjoy his first hit before he fired another bullet that hit the pig's ear. That did it. Even with instant reloading, there was no time left, and a dead pig can only stand up for so long. Down it tumbled, gaining speed as it rolled into the dry stream bed. We slid down after it for a closer look. It didn't take a high dealer to tell us this pig's skin wasn't going to be worth much. 2 shotgun blasts and 2 .22 shells had pretty much reduced the potential leather to wallet size. Hide aside, the meat was still good. so we cleaned out what was left of the guts and bundled the carcass to carry home. First, Navidad cut a vine to tie the legs together, then a wide strip of bark to make a head strap. Finally, he got a bunch of broad, soft leaves to put between the pig and his back to keep both ticks and bristles off his bare skin. When Navidad wasn't looking, Teri and I wiped fresh blood on our clothes and arms so everyone could see what mighty hunters we were. This was a proud moment, and we were heady with our success. It didn't matter a bit that Teri had shot the pig after it was already dead, and I hadn't shot it at all. We helped hoist the pig and hold it while Navidad got the head strap adjusted just right, and then walked proudly back into the village. Navidad was doing the work, but we were quite sure that all the girls would know that his success was due solely to our help. We split up at the airstrip. Navidad took the pig on over to his house for skinning and butchering, and we went home for breakfast. About an hour later, Navidad's shy 11-year-old daughter, Carmen, came over with one of the pig's front legs on a chipped enamel plate. It would be normal to share game all around the village, but it looked as if we got one of the best pieces in recognition of our invaluable contribution to the hunt. Carmen kind of glanced at Teri and me out of the corners of her eyes while she handed Mom the meat. Then she hurried her face in her robe and ran off giggling. It was pretty clear she'd just heard the whole story. Well, that wasn't quite what I was expecting when I read the title Spam Stampede. The next chapter is chapter 10, and I'm not going to read it right now. I'll read it later. It's kind of a long one, and it's called Yellow Brother, Yellow Mother, and I cannot figure out what that means. But there is a picture of two people in what looks like a dugout canoe. Well, we'll find out. Bye-bye. See you later.